right, everybody. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast. John Duncan here. And of course, I'm joined as always with my co-host, Darian Smith and Jimmy Marion. And we've got another game recap episode for you all today. Before we get started, this episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast is brought to you by Cahaba Brewing Company. And we're going to spotlight the Oka Uba IPA. For today's episode. If you have not tried the Oka Uba IPA, you need to get down to that tap room or go to your local supermarket and get a 6-pack of the Oka Uba IPA. Everybody knows that's literally my favorite core beer from Cahaba Brewing Company. But also shout out to Cahaba Brewing Company. We had our second and final UAB football watch party this past Saturday for the South Florida game. And we had another good crowd. Despite how the season's going, I thought we had a solid crowd. I just want to give a couple shout outs. Number one, shout out to Big Jim. This man was in the hospital a couple of days before the watch party, and he still made it down to Cahaba Brewing Company, and he's looking great. But
And
shout out.
Hold on. Who is Big Jim? Let's be clear. Who is Big Jim?
Jimmy Marion's father. We needed to specify that. Yes. So major shout out to Big Jim, was there the whole time. Also, shout out to Parker from the Blazers, who drove all the way from Mississippi to go to this watch party at Cahaba Brewing Company. And also shout out David Franklin and his wife. Happy belated anniversary, you two. But they drove hours to get to Cahaba Brewing Company. Guys, we have the best listeners. I don't even care. Like, we don't have as many as a lot of other podcasts, but we have the best and most loyal supporters of the Blazer Victory Podcast.
Darren, John, what about Reed with those shoes, man?
Yes. Oh, Reed with them clean UAB. Hey, Air Force Ones, man, those were sharp. And I'm super glad you pointed them out because, I had talked to Reed, again, shout out to Reed, before the game even started. He's a student at UAB. And, we kind of talked about and conversed like how we could get the student body more engaged in the Blazer Victory Podcast. That's kind of our next step. But yeah, Jimmy pointed out it was like great kicks. And I was like, man, I didn't even realize those kicks that he had on. So those were super sharp. And just shout out to seriously every single one of you who joined us at Cahaba Brewing Company this past Saturday. Despite Jeff, hey,
Porter, Albert, obviously Natalie and Elizabeth and the kids. I know I'm going to forget some people, but we had some good times for sure.
Yes, we had a great crowd. Yeah, Richard, shout out. Hey, Richard McCollum has not missed. Yeah, and Thomas, Richard and Tom. Hey, Richard has not missed a single Blazer Victory watch party at Cahaba. He's been to them all, so that is super impressive. But we seriously, guys, we thank you so much, and thank you to Cahaba for letting us host these watch parties. And, we were kind of a little nervous about this past game being on ESPN Plus, with the streaming, but Cahaba, top notch, was able to get multiple screens, and the stream the whole time was perfect. Like we couldn't have asked for it to be any better. So seriously, thank you all to our loyal listeners, and thank you again to Cahaba Brewing Company for your partnership with the Blazer Victory Podcast. With all that, there was a game played this past Saturday, and unfortunately, it's another loss. And it's not only another loss, guys. Another double-digit loss for Trent and Dilfer. And what we're used to the blowouts that have been happening lately. But what irks me the most of this game is that UAB actually had a double-digit lead in the second half. And Trent Dilfer still manages to lose by double digits. The opposing sideline, the South Florida sideline, they were fighting each other on the sideline because they were so mad they were losing to this UAB team. And UAB still finds a way with questionable play calling late in the game for sure. But UAB finds a way to not only lose, but to lose by double digits. And shout out, hey, before we move on, if you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, subscribe at Blazer Pod. But guys, where do we want to start here with dissecting this ball game?
I think this game is, it was shared responsibility. This would be the first time I feel like all year that I'm going to put some of this blame on the players. The players play the game every time. So, but we were in positions to where, that they just simply didn't execute, right? As far as in physically. They physically got beat. Or they didn't know simple assignments. I sent y'all a screenshot of offensive lineman, and it's something. It was a second. It was it ended up being a 4-yard game, right? I can't remember. I think we were up at that point. I think it was just after the muff punt return, and we had them on their heels. I think we were probably up 16-7 at that point. I don't know if it was 19-7 or something like that. It's one of the two. So we had all the momentum, and it's a 1st and 10. And if you look at it, you'll probably say, okay, 4-yard game, first down, no problem. But I look back at that play should have been a touchdown. If all we had to do was double team up to a linebacker. That's it. But instead, we have an offensive lineman looking off to the sidelines, looking to see if John is doing the meme with the beard. He's looking off to the sidelines. There's nobody out there. I sent y'all the screen. There's nobody there. The double team is right there. The hole is wide open. Our tight ends actually won that block on the edge this time. And all he had to do was just, if anything, just get out of the way. But instead, he didn't know where to go. He got back in the hole and looked around to where our running back had to kick it out wider, and he ended up just going out of bounds for 4 yards. Plays like that should be touchdowns. And I think when you go back and look at film and you see, and I had made this whole list of like top down, there's something going wrong. There's a miscommunication somewhere within responsibilities with how we got orchestrated. It really starts with the board, and then with the president, and then with the AD, and then the head coach. But guys, so I got this, and I'm gonna stop my rant here, because this game, out of all the games that we've played, it is some background, but this game, out of all the games we played, this probably frustrated me the most, because it was two bad teams just trying to outbad each other. So really, all you had to do was like minimize your mistakes. That's all you had to do. Minimize your mistakes and then know your responsibilities, at least to a point to where you can win the game. This is not a good team. We are not a good team, but USF was not a good team by far. And they didn't have their starting quarterback. We neither, but they didn't have their. Byron Brown is pretty dynamic in what he do with his legs and everything. We didn't have to worry about that. So I want y'all to try to. Oh, go ahead, John.
Well, no, I was just going to clarify, agree with you that these were two bad teams, man. I mean, South Florida. I mean, they were bad. I mean, I mentioned the fighting on the sideline. Like, both of these teams were just basically trying to hand the other team the win. Just get
you take it. Penalty here.
Yes.
Oh, take this touchdown back. I don't want this points.
This was the longest game from reviews, penalties, just incomplete passes, turn up. Like, this was just. I just thank God we were at Cahaba Brewing Company for this game. Now, I know my wife, she was kind of saying, hey, we need to go because we were celebrating my sister-in-law's birthday that night. And, I mean, you think a 2:30 game, like, oh, okay, we'll be out, be there like by 6 o'clock. No, man, it was like, 7:30, closer to 8 by the time. Like, it was just an ugly game from both teams?
So I got this, and I got this list. I made this whole thing, and I'm gonna read through it fast. I made this whole thing, right? So what this is like responsibilities from top down. There's some kind of something going on. So, and I want y'all to jump in, right? So I start at the head coach. It starts at the board, but I'm gonna just start at the head coach within the building. I believe the head coach's job is to set the identity, the style of play, to share expectations. He set the expectations and he defined the roles for the staff and the players. You know, he has an imprint on all of it. Everything stems from him. It goes down to the coordinators. All right. The coordinators are supposed to align and fully understand the head coach and interpret his vision, interpret what he's saying, so they can implement what he's saying, right? Through their style of play calling and the scheme. Head coach tell them what they want. They interpret. Okay, this is what we do. Okay, this is how we're going to execute it. They also have to align with the position coaches to know the limitations of their personnel. This is what we do. This is the scope of work we can do it in, right? Because we have this type of players. I'm getting this information from these guys. So then you go to the position coaches who are supposed to be hands-on with the players. They are supposed to understand the strengths and weaknesses of the group and the individual within that group. And they are supposed to get them better. They're supposed to teach them the technique in alignment with the coordinators, right? We're running zone scheme. I need to teach the zone scheme. It's on me to teach it, right? Don't teach what I want to teach, but what's aligned with the coordinators. Okay, then that's down to the team leaders. The team leaders set the accountability within the group for the players. You know, that's basically their job, and they communicate. That's like the when you have the NFLPA, you know, that's the team leaders. The team leaders is kind of the bridge between the players and the coach. And then you have the position leaders. That's the same thing as the team leaders, just within the positions, and then you have the players. So with all that being said, somewhere in there on all those responsibilities, I have been trying to identify where is the breakdown within this team. Is it do we start top up with just the identity itself, or the style, or the roles and the expectations, or is it the interpretation of what we're trying to do from the coordinators? Or is it the teaching that we're getting from the position coaches? Or is it the accountability from our team leaders? Or is it everything? Like, somebody help me out, because it's driving me nuts to why we can't get one thing. We can't seem to get one little scope of this right. So something is clearly off in this hierarchy.
Yeah, bro. I think the correct answer is everything. But a lot of that starts from the top. If you've got a head coach that has said multiple times, whether it's a press conference, whether it's an interview, that they do not know their identity, they do not know how to scheme. I think it starts at the top. I think you do have some coaches on the staff that know what they're doing, but I think they're just I don't know. I think that it is from the top down, from the head coach, and you've got a head coach overruling position coaches and even coordinators about what he thinks is right, and I think it's showing on the field this season, and it's just getting worse and worse each week we go through this season. Yeah, that's my answer. Jimmy, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I think anytime you're in a position where your team is 1-6 and has been performing the way that it has over the course of the last 2 seasons, the answer presently is going to be a combination of all the above. But I think we have to go back in time a little bit, and these issues were not as they weren't as big, like they weren't as spread. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's like a snowball effect. I think everything starts, if you're a first time listener and you're like, what the hell is going on with UAB? I do think it starts with just basic hiring decisions, just people placed into positions that they weren't qualified for. And when you do that, you may get fortunate if you think they have the intangibles that can make up for the lack of experience and they've got the ability to learn. And so it could be successful or it could go completely the other way, high risk, high reward. And I think from the top from the head coach hire to the coordinator hires to a lot of different ones, people were placed in jobs that they weren't ready for, and they have yet to be able to be successful in. Can they and will they be successful? Time will tell, but we live in a landscape where you just don't get infinite time. And we're how many games into this thus far, and we don't have an identity, and we haven't seen those things come to fruition yet. So that's extremely disappointing. And I think from a young person's mind, a college athlete, potentially, when you have such little success, that's where I think now it's creeping into the culture. We've been told for a while that it's all about the culture, doubling down, tripling down on culture. And that's not to give the false impression that there's this unique and awesome culture in this UAB football program is just not true. Anytime you have a team that's going to be performing as is UAB right now, you're going to have leaks in the foundation. And trust us, that exists today. And what I'm seeing, what's surprising, is a little bit of like finger pointing. And it's a little bit of like not making excuses, but at the same time, I listen to all these other college coaches and I shouldn't have. They were wrong. My way is the best way. High school. I'm doubling and tripling down on high school.
See, but he don't even know his own way. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think that sometimes that he just thinks that the listeners are, I guess, in general, are dumb, because he says one thing one week and then says another thing the next week. But, whoa, hey, don't you put it all on me. Don't put it on the players. Yes, we're putting it all on you. Nobody's blaming the players or picking at the players. This is all on you. You're the head coach. You don't know your identity, and you don't want to let your, some of your coaches coach. And hey, and that stems down to the players missing assignments, Darren, which you were going to mention, just the lack of focus that comes from the top down.
I'm going to go into ULM. I'm going to out Bryant Vincent. Come on.
Which is apparent. He never said that, but I think it's apparent when you look at the play calling. If you look at the difference in the play calling now versus then, you can say it's game plan or whatever, but there's nothing that you can say that can tell me that, like, hey, maybe ego or something was involved in that play calling, because it didn't make sense. But I think, John, you just hit on what I was just about to jump in and say, because Jimmy mentioned stuff creeping into the culture, right? And then you kind of, John came back around and said it starts from the top down. You don't know your identity. The first thing I listed in this head coaching, the head coach responsibilities is supposed to lay out that identity. What do you want this team? No matter what, this team has to be this way, or you will not coach and that player will not play. But this is how we will be. If it's one thing that we knew about a Bill Clark or Brian Vincent team, they were going to have an identity. We knew what we were getting. We probably didn't like it, but we knew it. What you had, John?
And how the hell are you supposed to have good practices when you don't even know your identity of your team? That's what another thing that I'm kind of sick and tired of. Like, oh, well, we're having good practices, but it's just not translating. Dude, you don't even know your identity of your team. You haven't developed an identity for your team. So how are practices going well?
It doesn't make practice is like a buzzword for me right now. Like I feel like take a shot. Like every time that we've heard all season long that practice has been stellar, NFL like, like that to me is where you're trying to just I don't know the right way to phrase this, but again it goes back to John's comment about like you think we're dumb. Is like you're trying to we can't challenge that. We're not allowed to go to practice, as a general fan, and we're not there. And
Were you
then,
there? Were you there?
yeah, we're not at practice. So what the hell am I going to say about practice? I'm just saying logically, it doesn't make any sense that you have someone. I was listening to McElroy and McElroy and Cube a couple weeks ago, and I think it was Greg McElroy that was kind of like, I'm paraphrasing here, but like that doesn't make any sense. Like I've never heard of a thing like that. Teams are practicing, like help us understand. And it doesn't make any sense that we could sit here and do like what if every week we sat here and we had an hour-long podcast prep? Hey, here's our agenda breakdown. Here's our points and all of this stuff. And then every single week we came here and it was just an S show. And like we just effed it up. We don't understand. We went through it and it was perfect. Like it was like the best podcast that it's ever been. It wouldn't make any logical damn sense. And so it's just like you're just telling us all that stuff just to distract and to deflect from what you're actually measured on, which is like wins and losses and what we actually can see.
But honestly, he may actually believe that, but I'm gonna get back to that in just a second. Just to put a bow on the whole culture thing and identity, I do see something in our identity. I do see something in our culture. I see it widespread. What is that I see? Uncertainty. I see uncertainty. I see it from the coach in the identity, where we're going to be rough and tough. We're going to be finesse. We're going to try to throw it down. We're going to go side to side. We're going to run screens. Like we're not going to give Lee Beebe the ball in the first quarter at all this game. In this game, we're going to run them 10 times in a row. It's like all over the place for no apparent reason. I don't know the identity. Apparently, the coach doesn't know the identity. I don't know our play style. Apparently, the head coaches doesn't know the play style. Apparently, the coordinators must not know the play style because they have to call based off the identity and the play style of what the head coach wants. But it's kind of been all over the place, offensively and defensively. I cannot tell you what we are. I don't know if we're a blitz-heavy team. I don't know if we like to sit back and play coverage. I don't know what the coordinators, based off their play calling, I don't know what they feel about the team. I really can't give you that. So you see the uncertainty there. Then you go down to the position coaches. In these positions, I see them just playing players. You'll see a player come in that you haven't seen. You'll see them hyping up a guy in the fall or in the spring, all fall, all spring. And then all of a sudden you don't see that player play at all. Like I can go down and name a whole bunch of players that was hyped up, this and this, this and this and this, and then it's kind of like, eh. So there's some kind of uncertainty there with the position coaches as to who's playing, who do you trust? I don't know who. I can't tell you who any of the coaches trust, and so then there's uncertainty with the team leaders because I don't see anybody holding anybody accountable. I don't see who holds who accountable. At least I can say this about South Florida. At least they got the fighting. At least I saw the passion. At least I seen something. I don't see anything from this team as far as who is the guy that'll go to somebody and say that's willing to fight over it and say, hey, we're not going to have that out of you. We can't have that no more. Stop saying I made the mistake. Don't play. Don't put him out there. I don't know who the team leaders. I don't know who's leading, and that you have to be at practice. You have to be at practice to know that, to see that. But I just want to know, and then it goes down to the players itself. So the product that we look at on the field, I cannot tell you guys how many busts I saw from each position group, like very basic plays. I tweeted out, I said, this is the most infuriating film that I've seen. Like out of all Tulane, they bullied us. Army bullied us. Navy bullied, like all that. Okay, cool, whatever. But this film right here, it was kind of like, you make a mistake. You make a mistake. You get a penalty. You read this wrong. I'm going to carry this ball like a loaf of bread. I'm going to miss a block. I'm not going to catch the ball 2 times in a row. I'm going to miss another block. I'm going to miss wide open tackles. And just with that, shout out to Sarai Bryan and Adrian Maddox, and to some degree Everett Rousseau too. Those guys play with an attitude and the edge, and they're consistent. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the attitude. I can't really say too much about an offensive player that Lee Beebe is probably like the only one to me that consistently every play plays like he has something to prove. Shout out to Lee Beebe. But yeah, man, I'm just I just want to basically just put a bow on the uncertainty and how it has trickled down from the top to the bottom in my eyes. So,
hey, real quick, Jimmy, on that what you just put in the chat, didn't we bring that up like a week or two ago that, hey, notice there's nothing on social media about being at UAB for that player?
Yeah, I was just going to point out that Ryan Pepins, who's one of my favorite guys, I don't see him on the roster anymore. He was returning kicks for a couple of games, and he's someone that started out at Utah, went to Grambling State, came to UAB. Don't know if he walked on initially or if he was still a walk-on from Thompson High School. He's no longer on the team. Don't know what's up with that. But there's like these. Why don't we transition to a little bit of this, John? There's some oddities, like as it relates to personnel, and some of which you know you can see as easy as, oh, that player's not on the roster anymore. And some of which you can kind of connect the dots, and some of which we've just been straight up told. So I don't know what you feel comfortable kind of, you like to take this in a certain direction, John. But
yeah, let's go. Where is Jacob Zeno? He was supposedly day to day, 4 weeks ago? Where is Jacob Zeno?
A little bit of clarification on. I think the only thing we got is like injury on the non-throwing shoulder, right?
Yes, that was leading up to the Tulane game, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So where has he been? Where is your starting quarterback? Now, we're not gonna, Kitna has played okay, decent. He's been admirable the last couple of weeks, but where is Jacob Zeno? And why in the world do you have almost this complete flip of offensive identity under Kitna when you didn't even have under Zeno? We alluded to it earlier, the ULM game from our film review, and what we saw, we're just going to run the ball right at you. Well, all of a sudden, the Navy game comes, and we're throwing it, 50 times a game? This past Saturday, 50 times. Yeah, Tulane, sorry. But then South Florida throw it 50 times a game. Like, what is going on?
So is it something in game plan? Like,
and then if, which I don't believe, if Zeno is hurt and he can't play, which again I do not believe, Landry Liddy is a capable option. Posse is a capable option. I do not know why you don't give either one of and Carter Putt too, Barker, why you don't give any of these guys an opportunity. Obviously, when the game is gone, UAB is not going to win. Army game, blowout. Navy game, blowout. Tulane game, blowout. Why don't you give any of these guys an opportunity to just light some spark on this offense, especially the Army game and the Tulane game? You cannot tell me that sitting or putting Kitna in that whole game is going to help him out just because he's playing more football. No, you need to lighten the spark on this sideline. And we mentioned it last week. That sideline at the Army game was dead from the get-go. Like, you've got to light a spark. Put Liddy in, put Posse in, try something else. And you're struggling with finding your identity. Well, what's the harm in trying somebody else? Like, I just do not understand it.
Well, I'd say that one part of the identity that's clear to me is favoritism. I don't know if
it looks that way. It looks that way.
I don't know if everyone knows, but I mean, John Kidna obviously played in the NFL. Trent Dilfer played in the NFL. Jaylen Kna was provided a second chance, and we appreciate Jaylen Kna and we support Jaylen Kna as we do every single player on this team. We root for Jaylen Kna. We were the only people that talked about Jaylen Kna when Jaylen Kna arrived, but we support Jaylen Kna. But his brother is a commit to UAB, a highly touted high school player. There's a lot of one of the few commits. We're not going to talk about recruiting. I mean, there's a lot of family ties, if you will. And I'm not saying all that's bad. I'm just saying, like, again, we had Jacob Zeno, who Trent himself, hyped up and deservingly so. Jacob Kidna, goodness gracious, Jacob Zeno had a wonderful, too many J's. Had a wonderful.
This man
season.
was a preseason Manning Award watch list guy, and you're telling me after how many weeks you're just going to bench him or say he's hurt? Like, I don't understand it. You've got 9 quarterbacks on this roster, and you're only playing 1 right now, right?
And we talked about, like, kind of pointing the finger a little bit. Is Jacob Zeno being blamed for early season losses? Is Jacob Zeno being passed over right now for Jaylen Kna to get the starting job and to run with it? Maybe more people need to ask questions about this, because
I think it's like fair questions to ask. Like, I think people get sensitive, and we talked about this beforehand. Like if I put tweets out or whatever, and I say fair criticisms on the game, you have people that's liking and doing all these passive aggressive stuff that I'm like, we can't have. It seems like here at UAB, it seems like sometimes they want it to be state-run media, to where it's kind of like, we want it to be this way, all positive, and if it's not positive, you can't speak on this. We're mad at you. Y'all don't support the players. You don't support the team. Blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? I always remember what they did at La Tech that year with that one reporter, and he kind of brought him on the field. I would have punched
Ben
that coach
Carlisle from Ble Tech.
I would have punched him in the mouth if he did me like that. If he did me. They do it. I was listening to what Ben Carlisle said. He didn't even say nothing very negative. It was fair criticism. Mm-hmm. So sometimes that's a problem with the media and with smaller, I guess, G5 schools. I guess you kind of want everything to be positive. I guess it ain't that many outlets to go around. So if you go listen to Bama, or you go listen to Georgia, some podcasts affiliated with Florida, Mississippi State, go listen to how they talk. Go listen to how they talk about the players, the coaches. They don't give a damn. They will talk about any and every. They will run you for filth. And here we are. We're just trying to be all nice about it. And no, you know what? I'm done with all that. We're going to say what we want to say. We're going to say what we feel, but we're going to be fair about it. And we're going to be wrong. I'm at freaking work right now. Look, I work at UAB. I'm not a coach. None of us are coaches. None of us are coaches. But we can speak freely about what we feel and what we think, especially if we have evidence of things, at least on what we see. We do hear things. We hear things here and there. Here, everybody does. And, that's a whole nother thing. But what we see from the film, from what you've said in the past to what you're saying now, that's public information that everybody has access to, that everybody's privy to. So we can just go by that. So what that's telling us is, why is all this haziness over Jacob Zeno? It's like, he was the guy. We start losing, and it's like, you know what? He's kind of hurt. He may not go this game, okay? He's kind of hurt again. He may not go this game. Then it's kind of like, He just ain't going. Just nothing is said. It's kind of like, what is going on? That's weird. That's very weird. We've been doing that with a lot of players. So I wish we had more clarity, just way more clarity. I haven't seen Trey Bodowski. We were struggling at tackle. I haven't seen Trey Bodowski. I haven't seen Zaire Flournoy. We were struggling at guard. I haven't seen Ricky Lee. He was close to returning. And all of a sudden he's redshirting. I thought we had depth with McQuan Merriweather. I guess he's taking his red shirt. Emon Smalls played a lot. Now he plays like 1 or 2 series a game. Yusuf Terry, we don't get any updates on injuries. How many guys? I didn't see Troy Jackiebeck anymore. I didn't see him out there. I barely see Tariq Watson. I just wish it was just more like, hey, no, this guy just got beat out. Guys like Jalen Ferguson at cornerback was hyped up. Haven't seen him at all. Even after, hey, got this, doing this. It's like, where are they? Armani Goodwin, this 3-headed running back thing that we were going to have. Haven't seen them. They don't play. OC Brothers was the latest guy. All of a sudden, I didn't know, like, nobody knew. Is it some kind of injury report that we get? Or is it just like this for all college teams? Somebody please inform me, because it is frustrating. Yeah, Caleb Perez, like all of this is just so much haziness, and then it's kind of like, oh yeah, just dealing with some dings. If a question is brought up, and then next thing you know, it's like, this guy's out for the year. Huh? To me, that there's just no accountability in that. And then that's kind of like maybe it's like that all over, but y'all can help. Maybe the listeners know better than I do. I do know at bigger programs, it's not like that. You try to play that stuff at Bama or Georgia, they're going to be like, nah, where this player at? What's going on? Can you imagine if Carson Beck, can you imagine if Cam Ward was just out? Nobody says anything, and it's just, can you imagine Shadir Sanders or Travis Hunter? They're going to have day-to-day updates on these guys. But here at UAB, you ain't got to say nothing, and just you go from being hyped up and starting and doing all of this, and then you're just not playing anymore. Nothing said, no harm, no foul. Nobody cares. But we do care. And I just don't like the uncertainty and the haziness this program is being ran with.
Yeah, I do think I guess looking towards the future about a G5, like, UAB, AAC, Sunbelt, whatever, as betting becomes legalized in more states and more popular, it's always been popular. I think they're going to have to. I think the leagues are going to require injury updates for the week. So I do think we're trending more towards that, but I mean, it's probably a couple years down the road. But Darian, I do agree with what you said. Do we have any more thoughts on this game in particular? Hey, or do we want to talk about the fourth down call, bringing in Trace Campbell? I'm on the third down call, the very last, next to last offensive series of the game. I think all three of us knew. I think everybody in Cahaba, I think everybody in that stadium knew that Trace Campbell was just going to quarterback run wildcat is per se for that third down. Like I don't like the predictability of that call. I do not like earlier in the game you punt on the South Florida 30-yard line and then get a touchback and let them start 20. Like, you line up for the field goal. And it was going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, was it going to be a 52-yard field goal attempt? Somewhere along that, 52, 55. You call timeout. You ice your kicker. And then, I think, was it 4th and 6 or 4th and 8, something like that. You come back and then send your punt team out there. Wow. Go for it.
Now, they did say that on that, with the field goal kicker, they did say they was kicking into the wind, and they was having issues kicking into the wind. The wind was kind of strong. So it was kind of like, I can get it in the sense of we kind of setting our kick up for failure. And we got to protect King Jonah. It's the only thing we got, man.
Shout out Special Teams Player of the Week in the AAC. Shout out.
Hey, Jonah, should be an All-American. If you ask me, I'm pushing for – we need to get him the ball. We need to put him in the backfield.
He's the only player that I haven't heard, like, NFL comps to. Like, can we just start saying, like, this
top
is
10 pick?
We have an NFL kicker on this roster, and we need to get this man drafted. Why not?
What's the story in the Bible, the Jonah in the well? Hey, my boy Jonah been in that well. He's waiting to be unleashed. He's trying to go to, what was it, Nineveh? Hey, take him, and let's win a freaking ball game.
And
Give
you know
him the
what?
ball. Yeah.
Even from 50 or 40 plus yards out or whatever, it hasn't even been questionable.
Automatic.
Have y'all realized that all of them have just been like down the pipe? It ain't even close. Like he's having one of the best kicking years I've seen. Period. Not just a UAB, but
let's just visualize it right now. UAB at home, Protective Stadium, after just unbelievable Blazer thunder heading into the fourth quarter, and the UAB defense and Tulsa defense they're playing hard. The offenses are going off. And it's 48-48 in triple overtime, and we line up for a 50-yarder, and Jonah Delan knocks in the game-winning field goal, and UAB beats Tulsa 51.
Well, you better not kicking no 50-yard field goal in overtime. That means you lost 20 yards.
Well, I mean, we do like to go side to side a little bit.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
that's
I mean, we get TFL'd a lot anyway. So I mean,
let's speak into existence. Jonah Delan's game-winning field goal. Triple overtime versus Tulsa. Season turns around. We make a bowl game. We win it. And then we're off to the distance there.
Is it Jonah Delange or is it Jonah Delunga? Because I hear a lot of announcers say Delunga.
Oh, we got to look in the media guide or something, figure it out.
He deserves.
We do need to respect the name.
Who has the captain patch on? Rip it off of him and give it to Jonah Delange or Delunga. Give it to him. Because he's been consistently our best player, the kicker. You know, he's earned it through the way he played, not through hype. He hasn't been hyped up at all. He's only performed. I'm glad that I know this was kind of like a little funny session with whatever going on, but I'm glad that we did give him his roses. He definitely deserves it.
He's the reason why NIL was created. You know, this man's going to get the bag this offseason. I mean, let's go.
Hey, listen, if I'm Auburn or if I'm somebody, I'm throwing Delunga the bag, like Delunga. I'm throwing him the bag, but you know he's getting a lot of opportunities here at UAB. You know, he might as well just stay where you at. You know what I'm saying?
Real quick.
That call, the third down call, we knew it was all predictable. I wish we would have kind of did at least try the Tebow fake pass or something. But that's half on the coaches and that's half on the players. Our tight ends, I tweeted about this. Our tight ends got decimated on that play, in which I have never seen them block as poorly as they did. They were not intense. So everybody thinks, like, a lot of times when we talk about blocking, everybody think we're talking about just the offensive line. If the team, the whole offense, minus the quarterback, everybody blocks. Our receivers haven't blocked well, minus probably Malachi Hope Bennett. You know, he's the only one that'll block, but the rest of them, they don't block well. Our tight ends, they have been very disappointed blocking on the edge this year. I want to be clear about that. I'm disappointed in that because that's not them. That's not them. They haven't been intense. I watched them on cutoff blocks on the backside, and they just kind of, oh, that's not important. And their guy chased the play down all the way from the backside every time because they're just kind of, And you know what frustrates me the most about this? The drive coming out of halftime when we went 3 plays or 4 plays and we scored was the time you see when we have potential, when guys know where to go and they actually go there and they actually do their job with intensity. Maybe that's what Trent them is seeing in practice. Maybe that's what they're seeing in practice right there. That, like, with that drive, but it's so many busts in our defensive backfield, missed tackles. If you're not Adrian Maddox or Sarai Bryant, our safeties are missing tackles left and right in crucial moments. our offensive line. I know we got freshman Jordan Hall. He did good and mostly in pass blocking. Then we got freshmen and transfers and so many blown assignments. They didn't know where to go half the time, man. And then we got the quarterback. He played well, and then he started trying to do too much. Then the turnovers came. Then the miscommunications with the receivers. Everybody started busting. It's disappointing. I'm disappointed in the players. I'm disappointed in the coaching staff. This was a bad showing.
Yeah, last thought on the game, and then we'll go to our Patreon VIP questions. Yes, we did see some improvement from the defense, but they still hung 35 on you. In perspective, the 3 prior games, South Florida totaled 28 points. So they hit more than their total of the 3 prior games, and 2 of those 3 was with their starting quarterback. This was with a backup quarterback. They only put 3 on Memphis the week before. So I get the defense was kind of forced into some bad situations, but they still hung 35 on you. So, all right, going to the VIP Patreon tier. You can join the Patreon for $5 a month to get access to bonus content, but you can join the VIP tier to get for $10 a month. And we have this awesome community chat feature where we've kind of really developed a sense of community within the Patreon where everybody's chatting during the game. But like I said, it's just $10 a month, $5 more than the regular tier. But Thomas Johnson asks, has Trent Dilfer lost the team? Is there any way he can get the team back? I do think he has lost the team. Is there any way he can get the team back? Yeah, win out, but I don't see that happening. I think you can beat Tulsa. I think you can beat Tulsa. But outside of that, I don't think you're beating Rice. I don't think you're beating UConn. I don't think you're beating Charlotte. Definitely not beating Memphis. But I'll be there, Liberty Bowl. So good question, Thomas. Nathan, we hit on your first question about the injuries, but he also asked, what are y'all's thoughts on if Bill Clark goes to a team we end up playing? And Jimmy, I'll throw it to you.
Oh man, what are my thoughts? Damn, that sucks. First thoughts would be, hey, if he gets another gig, that being like an ECU, great for him. I think ECU is paying in the 2.3 to 2.5 range annually. So they've got a great fan base, a great support. I can easily see him being successful there in a lot of different places. So Bill Clark's been out of the gig for a little while, which he was at UAB in some capacity. Hell, he's doing consulting right now. I wish he was consulting UAB. I would bet that he's probably consulting UALM. Not to take anything away from Vincent, but those guys know how to coach. So yeah, I'd be first and foremost happy for him, happy for his family. And just send some prayers if we have to see them next season.
Well, speaking of next season, Matt asked on the BVP VIP tier, says a lot of these lists we see them Twitter, Facebook, kind of have who's going to be the next coach terminated, and unfortunately Trent Dilfer is kind of at that top of that list. And I think I saw one like betting odds that he was going to be the next one. But all that, if that happens, who would be your top coach search candidate? And well, let's hear candidates. And Darian, I'll throw it to you. So who would be some names if hypothetically that happens that you would like to see at UAB?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think that'll happen because buyout, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll get another chance to prove himself and see if he learned anything instead of like kind of blaming other people. Let's see what he's learned.
Mm-hmm.
And then if he does, let's say, but he does that, guess what? We're going to support him. We talk bad. We criticize when it's bad, and we show twice as much love when we see things playing out well, because we support the program. We don't support the staff. Well, we support the staff with the program, but we're a program first. Let's be clear about all of that. Just I don't want anybody getting their feelings because people get softened in their feelings all the time. All right. My go-to guy would be Tyson Hilton. I'm biased. Tyson Hilton was the quarterback's coach when I played at UAB. His dad was the offensive coordinator. He also has Tyson Summers as his defensive coordinator, who was the safeties coach when I was there. He also has Will Friend as his offensive coordinator, who was my offensive line coach when I was there. He also has Travis Taylor as the guy that's running the operations. He ran the operations when we was at UAB. I saw what they were able to do with little to nothing when we were there as far as resources. It's a guy that I know he wins at WKU, that he has an identity. He communicates well. He communicates well with his staff. He communicates well. He knows the region. He knows how to recruit. He's a winner. And they have an identity offensively, defensively, what they want to do. I love Tyson Hilton. I love the Hiltons in general. And that would be the first call I would make because of his familiarity with UAB, familiarity with the community, and he knows the expectations here. He knows what we're trying to do. And he wasn't given that opportunity when he was here. It was they weren't given anything. We had cold showers. So I think he can get the job done.
Yeah, and I'll jump into I love Tyson Hilton and what he's doing or what he has done at that Western Kentucky football program. And people don't remember that program that he took over was a bad program. Like they had just fired the guy. He had just won a couple games in a couple years. I can't remember his name. But Tyson Hilton has done a really good job at Western Kentucky. And to come full circle here, I would call Skip Holtz. You know, we talked about it, Darian, you know, when we were doing it, like, no. But hey, man, I mean, he's been around. He's has a lot of coaching experience, doing well with the Stallions. But like I said, this is a hypothetical question. But thank you, Matt.
Y'all are thinking too logically about this. Like, y'all have to remember our AD and his history. I say our AD is probably going to call Pat McAfee. See if Pat McAfee wants to come out in the field. He's going to call Stephen A. Smith and see if Stephen A. Smith wants to interview for this position. This is the same man that interviewed a current NBA player, Jason Terry, for the UAB men's basketball program, a proud UAB men's basketball program. We have an adult in that room. We got our whole staff currently is more experienced and better off than Jason Terry to coach this basketball team. So, and we know what we just did hiring for football. So I'm going to say, give me Stephen A. Smith as the next UAB football coach. As a wild card, I know people won't necessarily like this, but I'm just trying to think like, money and potentially buyout. The DC at Alabama was at South, and they don't want him anymore. Kane Womack, potentially if he gets fired, from there. That's somebody I'd look at. You got a guy like Charles Huff, who's had some relative success at Marshall, who was an associate head coach at Bama. He's been 3 straight bowling seasons at Marshall. That's a guy I'd look at, low buyout, at least from what this is reporting here. But I like the Tyson Hilton call, Darian. And Skip, I think, deserves an interview as well. And I maybe you can try to do something like James Madison did, where James Madison went to the FCS pool. They hired a guy, and he's continuing that success. So that's something I would consider as well.
This Sunday, UAB basketball is back, baby. Exhibition
Can I
against
say
Western
this?
Kentucky. Yeah.
For those of you that have, fought through this for 54 minutes, UAB basketball single game tickets went on sale at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time today, whatever today is, Monday, October 23rd. And John just referenced an exhibition game that UAB basketball plays on Sunday of this week. But the action starts on Monday, November 4th against Vermont, a good quality opponent in Vermont. We saw a good quality opponent in Bradley coming to Bartow Arena this past year, and they knocked off the Blazers. We're not having any of that this season. I don't agree with how long it took for the single game tickets to go on sale to the general public, but they are on sale right now. So tell your friends, tell your family, go to uabsports.com, click on tickets, go to men's basketball, single game tickets, hit the buy button. It's a bye week for football. The UAB Athletics Administration is trying to say it's a bye week. So go buy those damn tickets and support this AAC Conference Championship team. Yaxel Lindenborg, the preseason player of the year. Man, the GOAT, Andy Kennedy, all the returning starters, and just all the great team and staff that the UAB basketball team has. If you don't have a ticket yet, get the hell to uabsports.com right now and let's pack Bartow.
Yes. You know what? I feel it. I think this is going to be one of the most memorable years of UAB basketball ever. I think it has the opportunity, but we have to set the tone. we need ransom at the first game. We need it packed. We need the players to feel our appreciation and our love, but they also need to feel the expectations so they can hold themselves accountable. I need Andy Kennedy. You know, he was getting on to us some last year about the crowd. And he was getting, and then it got better though. I got better, but you know what I love about that is he upheld his end. They started off shaky, then they started figuring it out, and they figured it out. As they start figuring it out, Andy Kennedy said, "Y'all need to figure it out." And we said, "You know what? We're gonna figure it out," and we figured it out. You know, and that's how it's supposed to do. He held up his end. We held up our end. Now this year, we're both here, and we need to pack that joint out. I'm about to cuss. I almost cursed. I was like, we need to pack it out, and you need to go. Yeah, speaking of basketball, y'all know something that hurt, man. JJ Redick is a first-time head coach. I'm a Lakers fan. And they won, and he did the press conference afterwards, and then he said, "Man, first thing I want to thank is my staff because they went and got some experienced guys on the staff and." Well, he was like how much he leaned on them and how much they help. He was like, it's been a godsend. He just talked about his staff. And I just thought about, I know there was a quick transition, but I had to get that out. I randomly thought about it because we brought up basketball, but I was just like, why couldn't we just have some experience on our football team for our first time college head coach? You know, it only makes sense, but just hearing that basically clarified that in my head, and it just made me sad. After watching a game, I got sad and was like, we could have been in that same boat, but no, we're not. We're here.
But you risk if you hire someone experienced there, and they might question you, though. They might challenge you. I mean, that's the risk.
You said what's the risk?
You risk if you hire an experienced staff, they may question you. They may challenge you. So, I mean, you got to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
So basketball preview coming next week. Thomas Johnson. Don't hate the player, hate the game. And we're going to be real happy with Andy Kennedy in basketball. Starts off the season November 4th against Vermont. We'll be back next week. Yeah. Get those koozies.
Do y'all know this chant? We had a chant when we played this. UA. UA.
Don't say the word.
B.
All right, guys. Hey, just Blaze, and we'll be back next week.